Hi guys, today we are going to be covering the SOL 6.7 warm-up. SOL 6.7 covers area, perimeter, and circumference of circles, triangles, and rectangles. It also covers practical problems involving these shapes, and it involves the relationship between circumference and diameter to make pi. So number 1 says, describe the relationship between the diameter and the radius. How do you find one if given the other? So I'm going to use this circle right here. We know that the radius is when we go from the center of the circle to a point on the outside. The diameter is a line that goes through the center of the circle but touches 2 points of the circumference. The radius is 1/2 of the diameter. So if we wanted to find the radius, but we were given the diameter, we would cut it in half or divide by 2. The diameter is 2 times the radius. So if we were given the radius and wanted to find the diameter, we would have to multiply it by 2. Number 2 says to find the area and circumference of the following figures. So of course, both of these figures are circles. So we are going to use formulas for a circle. So let's start with number 1. Our formula sheet has 2 circumference formulas, one that has an R for radius and one that has a D for diameter. Well, that circle had a diameter, so we're going to use the formula C equals pi D. From here, it's a job for Desmos. So we open our calculator, and remember that we type in the part of the formula except for the C equals. So I'm going to type in pi D, and I'm going to tell Desmos that D is equal to 7. Now for today, we're just going to round these to the 10th place. So C is equal to 21, let's see, in 21.99, if we're rounding to the 10th place and we look at its neighbor number, this 9 is actually going to go up to a 10. So what happens is it turns into a 0, and then we have to put the 1 over here. So we actually end up with 22. So the circumference is 22 feet. Now let's find the area. On our formula sheet, under circle, there's actually only one formula for the radius, or the one formula for the area, and it involves the radius. There's no other option. Area equals pi r squared. Now we are given the diameter, but for the formula we have to have the radius. And we talked about if we're given the diameter and we want the radius, we have to cut the diameter in half. So 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. And now we put this into Desmos. So our formula is pi r squared. And r is equal to 3.5. If we round to the nearest tenth, we have an area of 38.5. Since this is area, our units are in square units, so this is square feet. Looking at this problem, we want to find the circumference, so let's look at our formulas. We are given the radius in this problem, and there is a formula for circumference when we're given the radius, and it's 2 pi r. And the radius of this circle is 11. So we're going to use Desmos. 2 pi r, and r is equal to 11. And if we round to the nearest 10th place, we have 69.1 meters. The area formula is always the same, pi r squared. This time we already have the radius, so we don't have that extra step. R is equal to 11. So pi r squared and r is equal to 11, we end up with an area of 380.1 square meters. Third question on this page, which of the following could be used to approximate pi? The important thing to remember is that pi is the ratio between the circumference and the diameter. So it's equal to the circumference divided by the diameter. The circumference of this particular circle is 12.56, and the diameter is 4. So pi is very close to 12.56 divided by 4, which is C. We can actually double check this by using Desmos. If we put that in the calculator, 12.56 divided by 4 is 3.14, which is a good approximation of pi. Page number 2, we're going to find the area and perimeter or the circumference of the following. So we're going to start with this rectangle. We're going to find the area first. If we look at our formula sheet under the rectangle, we find the area with the formula LW. And for this rectangle, the length is equal to 7 and the width is equal to 12. So we just put that into Desmos. So LW is our formula. L is equal to 7 and W is equal to 12. So our area is 84 centimeters squared. Now let's find the perimeter. Looking back at our formula sheet, under the triangle, perimeter is found with the formula 2L plus 2W. And our length and width are exactly the same. Length is equal to 7, width is equal to 12. Since they're the same, the only thing I'm going to change up top is the formula. So 2L plus 2W, and it looks like our perimeter is equal to 38 centimeters. Now we're going to find the area of this triangle. If we look at our formula sheet under the triangle, the area is 1/2 times the base times the height. In a triangle, the height is typically a dashed line that goes through the center of the circle, and it is perpendicular, or it forms a right angle with another side. So our height is 7, and the base is the side that it forms that perpendicular right angle with. So our base is equal to 8. So in Desmos, I do 1/2 BH. B is equal to 8 and H is equal to 7. So our area is 28 square centimeters. Now you'll notice that under the triangle there is no formula for perimeter. Instead, we have to use the definition of perimeter, which is all of the outside distances. So we're going to add 6 plus 8 plus 6. So our perimeter is going to equal 20 centimeters. Lastly, we're going to do another circle. So first we're going to find the area. We've done one of these before. Our formula is pi r squared. We're given the radius here. The radius is equal to 5. So we're going to type in the formula pi r squared, and r is equal to 5. So we end up with 78.5 square meters. Now the perimeter of the circle is called the circumference. And our circumference formula when we're given the radius is 2 pi r. And our radius is still 5. So our formula 2 pi r and radius is equal to 5. So our circumference is equal to 31.4 meters. Question number 2 says a rectangle has an area of 64 square meters. So far we know we're dealing with a rectangle and we are dealing with area. Which of the following could be the length and the width of the rectangle? So I'm not asking you to find the area. I'm asking you to find the length and the width. So we already know that we're going to have 2 answers. So first we need to start with the fact that the formula for area of a rectangle is LW. But we don't know what L is equal to, and we don't know what W is equal to. All we know is that when we find the right length and the right width, the area should equal 64. Well, one thing that you can do is you can take the area, 64, this only works for area, and you can divide it by the different sides. So 64 divided by 12, unless 5 1/3 is an option, which it's not, 12 isn't going to work. So let's try 64 divided by 16. It looks like that'll work if 4 is another option for a side, which it is. So 16 and 4. Even though we found the answer, I want to show you why the other answers aren't going to work here. So 64 divided by 8 is 8, but we only have one 8 here, so I'm going to cross it out. 64 divided by 5, there's no 12.8 option. 64 divided by 10, there's no 6.4 option. 64 divided by 9, 7 1/9 is not an option. And 64 divided by 32, 2 is not an option. And we can actually double check our answer because we can plug in that length and that width and see if we get 64. So I'm going to plug in 16 for my length and 4 for my width, and we get an area of 64. So if the way that I just did it didn't make sense to you, another way is you could just guess and check different numbers for the length and the width until you get the combination that works for you. The last problem says a rectangle has a perimeter of 42 inches. Which of the following could be the length and the width of the rectangle? So like number 2, I'm not finding the perimeter. I've already been given the perimeter. I have to find what the length and the width are equal to. And we're going to do a very similar technique that we did for number 2. We're going to start with our formula for perimeter, which is 2L plus 2W. We don't know what L is equal to. And we don't know what W is equal to. We just know that by the end, that top row should say 42. So I'm going to try 7 and 6. That doesn't seem to work. It looks like I'm going to need some bigger numbers. So why don't we try 15 and 2? All right, that got us a little bit closer. Let's try 12 and 10. All right, that's really, really close. So it's possible that we only need to change one of these numbers. Let's try 12 and 6. Close, but not quite. Let's try 12 and 7. No, that made it work, or made it a little better. Let's try 15 and 6. And there we go. We end up with a perimeter of 42 inches. Again, it just takes some guessing and checking on your part to see what works together. If you're getting answers that are too big, use smaller numbers. If you're getting answers that are too small, use bigger numbers. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or leave them in the comments below.